Day 11. So, day 11 is where students get into their pairs and try and form their first floatable research project idea. At the end of the class, they're filling out a worksheet that asks them to name their provisional topic. They can change it, of course, before they actually do the real research proposal if they turn out to not like it or it's not viable or whatever. But they're trying out an idea and they're showing it to you by the end of class. That's where everything's aiming. The other things that this class is really about is helping them understand the research proposal, Project 4. It's a complicated project that has a bunch of little steps. I think it's the most difficult project in the whole class, so they should really confront what's in there and what's going to be required of them as they do it. So those are the big aims. If there's also some stuff about genre in here. If you haven't discussed genre too much yet, this is the time to really hit it hard, because they need to understand that this document they're making serves a purpose and that the way that it works is reflected in how it's put together. So helping them understand that connection, that this document works in the world or it doesn't, is one of the big concepts here. They were thinking about that last time with research questions. Now they're sort of bumping it up to the whole proposal. So you may or may not have somebody from the library's practicum program coming into chat at some point. I'll let you know on Monday if that's going to happen. We're still working that out with them. They'd be recommending a 1 or 2 credit study skills course that students could register for next quarter if they wanted to. It's a cool resource, and registration for them is coming up pretty soon, so we wanted to just advertise that before we get there. So that might happen. I'll let you know. The first stop for the day is to brief them on using academic databases to find scholarly articles. One piece of their homework is to find 2 peer-reviewed academic sources that might be of use to their research project. In the binder, I walk through what I think is the absolute simplest, most reliable way to do that, which is to go to the library website, click on article databases, and then click on Academic Search Complete, an EBSCO database. What I like about that one is, as you'll see, you can click full text, you can click scholarly peer reviewed, and then search for some terms, and it will come up with stuff pretty reliably. So I've shown you graffiti and campus, which if you just do that one for them, it comes up with some interesting sources. I'd suggest you go through it before you show them, or try some other set of keywords that you think would be interesting for a project like this, or pick some off of that long list that we made. But you're basically showing them how to do a simple keyword search. As long as they do full text and scholarly peer-reviewed, they will always find something that's useful to them. On the worksheet that goes with this homework, I also suggest using the Writing Studies database CompPile. It's a little more difficult to work through. I'll show you in staff meeting how to do it, but it's a bit more specialized, and they'll find sources that I think are a bit better, but they'll find perfectly good sources this way too. So once you've shown them that, you can show them any other databases you like or sources. They probably know JSTOR already. JSTOR's fine, but a little limited in what it has. Next up, you want to get the pairs together and have them read each other's letters that they wrote. They might not have had time to read them as emails by now. If they have, then they can still talk about them. And their project here is to brainstorm what kind of research project they think they might want to do. This can be quite abstract. Let them know that they will later on in class get some time to actually write out an idea together. So this is a good spot to brainstorm. Encourage them to come up with a couple of options. I say give them 15 minutes for it. You might only give them 10, depending on how you want to do your time today. Right at the end there, I would hand out the pre-proposal worksheet that they'll be filling out. I wouldn't hand that out at the beginning of this activity, only because they'll go right into working on it and they won't brainstorm very much. I would just hand it to them so they only get a minute or 2 to look at it before you move on to the next thing. They'll get to it later. You're giving them time later. The next thing is sharing the prompt for Project 4 and talking through the parts of it, um, reminding them of the workshop day and how important those workshop days are to their grade. Um, you should, it will probably come up. The workshop penalty for not having a draft during workshop applies to both of them. That's how I do it. The penalty for incomplete applies to both of them. The penalty for lateness, I say, is half a point to each of them. And of course, the penalty for incomplete can be recovered by revising and resubmitting the project. I've set the point scale pretty low on this project, partially because timing-wise, it's really hard to revise this one since it's turned in right before midterms, and then they have that week when they need to be doing the research to do it. So I've intentionally made it a little easier to pass than some of the other activities, but of course, look at that scale and see how that fits for you and your planning. The most important part to hit here, and you might even write this separately on the board, is that the purpose of this genre is to convince you that they are capable of doing this research project, that they've thought it through, that they've examined the topic from different angles and understand what they're getting into, that they have a clear plan for carrying it out, and that they have an understanding of how this research could turn out, and they're open to different possibilities. Those are the things that you're examining here, and they have to prove that they can do it. As well written or sloppily written as it is, it needs to be convincing, and that's what you need to really hit on here. Since you're going to talk about genre, they need to really understand the purpose of this particular document, and it is to convince you that they can do it. And if you're not convinced, you're going to ask them to resubmit it and do it again, and they're going to lose time on their research project, and it won't be as good. So they need to understand that that's really what they're trying to do here. From there, I would go into a lecture or reminder about genre and how that works and what we're talking about when we're talking about genres. I talked through some talking points here that we've done before, starting with movies and the difference between the qualities that makes one good or another, and how they're different from each other. The point that you're trying to get to here is examining what's the purpose of a research proposal, which I just said, but you can help them get to. And then what's the purpose of each part of the research proposal in reaching that eventual end. You really want to help them understand how the individual sections of the thing work. Finally, I draw their attention to the fact that they need to create their own data gathering documents for this, which are surveys or interview questions or protocols for if they're going to do an in-person observation of a place. That they will need to provide those, and that those are their own separate genres that they can research online very easily, and they'll need to show you by the final day that this project is due. So there's lots of little genre work involved in this project. The first part of the work together, starting with their homework, is going to be starting on the summary of research on this topic already, using the scholarly databases. So there's a worksheet for this that you can find there. It asks them to find two sources, first to gather citation information about it, the title, the author, the journal, the year. Second, to do some summary work of it, what's the research question, and then what kind of evidence does it use, similar to the Young Scholars thing. Then it asked them to dive into the bibliography or works cited section of the piece they found and find two other citations that are mentioned in the article that they could find and include in further research. So a little bit of diving in there and seeing the other sources that might be relevant. And then to just write about their sort of gut reaction to the piece and how it might be useful or not. They'll bring that next time. So the last part of class, as much time as you've got left, I would give them to filling out their pre-proposal worksheet that asks them to just think through how they might approach this project, and they'll be turning that into you at the end of class. They should probably take a picture of it so they've got a copy for themselves, but that's their deliverable for today, is committing to a maybe project that could work for next time. So that's what you're sending them off into the weekend with. Next week is all about refining the research proposal and getting it ready to submit at the end of the week.